All right. So I've been watching the show. If you haven't seen it on Netflix, it's called The Witcher, and I imagine like it's fairly popular right now. I think part of the reason for that is simply Superman is in it, and it's an interesting show. I wouldn't say that it's great. It's okay. It definitely has not reached the level of complexity and everything that the original video game series had. But it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot more limitations when you're dealing with living, breathing people and stuff than it is when you're creating everything out of just digital space. But it deals with some interesting thoughts. And so, one of the most famous, maybe, quotes, I guess you could say, of the series, or one of the most important themes, I guess, is this idea of a lesser evil. And the video games deal with it in more opaque terms than the show does, in which literally every choice that you make goes poorly. Just and it's summarized, I guess you could say, in the somewhat famous thing from it of if I've got to choose between the one evil and another, then I'd rather just as soon not choose. And it seems like it's supposed to pay it off that way, of that it's this elegant middle ground, choosing to abstain from choosing uh, between two things that are undesirable. And quite honestly, through the lens of like we are right now, especially in an election year here in the United States, and so this is a much more prescient issue for us to kind of wrestle with and deal with than maybe elsewhere. That we have both a primary, we have an actual presidential election coming up. This is a census year. This is a leap year. Like there's just so many things all colliding in this exact same calendar year that are directly corollary to that issue of that. What do you do when there's just, it seems like you've just got two undesirable choices. Neither one is very attractive. Neither one of them really checks all the boxes, but you, then what do you do? And growing up, there's been so many instances where people would write in a presidential election and be so proud of themselves because they voted for Jesus, or they voted for Mickey Mouse, they voted for Superman, Captain America, like all these different characters, like that they would just do, literally just throwing their vote away. And then in 2016, there was a big deal with the whole Gary Johnson thing of, is voting for an independent candidate just discarding your vote, or you just giving the election away to the person that you don't want to win? And so is that the same thing as just not voting? Is that the same thing as just not choosing if both candidates are that just, there's neither one of them is truly desirable that way? Well, maybe Emma, dog. Maybe this is the thing, though. Despite The Witcher's overt cowardice when it comes to making decisions in critical times like that, despite his overt cowardice, which that's what that is. It's not some kind of philosophical middle ground. It's just that you're a coward. Because the reality is, throughout your whole life, you're really not going to have very many. This is clearly 100% white knight, clean, clear, opaque good, and then this one over here is the dark and shadowy evil, and you have to choose one or the other. Most of the time, it's going to be more like, which major should you choose in college? What job offer should you accept? Or like, it's going to be questions like that, and there isn't an opaque yes or no, and that's what jams people up the most. It's not going to, like, it's going to be, there's going to be so many external circumstances that dictate it, your budget and your financial positioning, where you want to be in life right now versus later. Like, there's going to be so many factors that impact it, but most of the time, you're not going to have this overwhelming yes or no decisions. There's not going to be this clear good or bad. There's just going to be, well, that doesn't really get me everywhere, but it's almost, and then this one's got these other features that I like and that I dislike, and I don't know what to do. So, despite the Witcher's overt cowardice in that realm, decision making, he's an overwhelmingly dangerous, thrill-seeking risk taker in other I mean, he's he's a literal monster hunter. He kills people on a regular basis. He kills monsters, and he has scars all over his body from taking significant wounds from various creatures. So it's this interesting dichotomy that he's so, I mean, I guess you can, like, he's brave on the one hand, and at the same time a coward on the other. Courage and cowardice in the same being. And I think that is an interesting foil for the way we are in real life as well. That we compensate for our indecisiveness or our decisive cowardice throughout daily life through risk-taking, dangerous, poisoning our body kind of behaviors of either consuming toxicants or consuming addictive chemicals and driving over the speed limit, which is one of the most dangerous things you really can do. We don't think about it that way, but you're more likely to die in a car crash than pretty much any other way. It's just, we compensate our kind of paralysis almost, decision making wise. And we put off those decisions as long as we possibly can. You don't pay your bills until a couple of days before they're due, and like you hope that the postmaster's going to get them there on time, and things like that, right? We play roulette with it in some ways, of that, almost chicken level